Kira, please, we are live.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Olga. So everybody, good afternoon et bonjour à tout le monde. Let me express my appreciation to all of you for your presence today. I know many of you already since I've been in the division for quite a while, and I look forward to meeting those of you I haven't yet had the chance to meet in the future. Je suis heureuse d'organiser aujourd'hui ma première réunion générale en mon qualité de directrice de la division pour me présenter officiellement et vous informer des objectifs et des priorités de la division pour 2021, ainsi que des projections budgétaires de la DCM pour 2021. I'll switch back to English. I think it'll be maybe easier for everyone. Please note that given the magnitude of issues that we may wish to address, and I recognize that there is an awful lot to talk about, this town hall meeting will address issues of general interest to all staff of the division. We've already planned service-specific town hall meetings, and colleagues should have already received an invitation to attend the meetings for their respective services. Since we'll be splitting up we'll have separate town hall per service later, we'll be dealing with very specific or more service-specific topics in those particular meetings. If you wish, however, you can pose questions that are service-specific in the chat, or you can, of course, send them to Muge, who'll make sure that we use that to inform the presentations that we make at those town halls. We're very grateful that the Director General has accepted to participate in today's town hall, and we very much appreciate her support to DCM. Before going on, I'd like to highlight some housekeeping rules. After the Director General's remarks and my presentation, we will open the floor for questions. Today's Q&A will be via the Teams chat function. I know in the past sometimes we've used Slido for Q&A. The advantage of working in Teams is it's only one platform. So please feel free to put your questions in the chat. The questions are moderated, so it may take a little while for the question to appear. Everybody, if you see a question you like, please go ahead and upvote that, indicate with the thumbs up. This will help us focus on which questions we should answer. We'll be taking the questions in order of popularity. Please be assured that any questions we don't have time to answer will be answered after the town hall, and we'll be sharing the recording and the chat afterwards with the staff with the summary of the meeting. And some of the questions, as I mentioned, may actually be deferred to the service-specific town halls. In general, I would ask that the questions not be focused on individual cases. If something is very specific, only involving you, please feel free to send me an email and we'll work on it in that direction. Also, we're happy to announce there's the option of using captioning in English should you wish to do so. Teams also has an unofficial machine translation function that can be used with captioning in the other UN languages. And if you haven't seen that, it might be worth trying out. You can get a sense of how effective you think that is. So now, without further ado, it is my great pleasure to give the floor to the Director General to say a few words. Director General.
Thank you, Kira. Good afternoon, everybody. It's my great pleasure to address the staff of Division of Conference Management today directly. First of all, I would like to thank all of you for the fantastic work you've been doing always, but I would like to especially thank you for the work you've been doing since the beginning of the pandemic. And really this very difficult and very challenging period showed your dedication, your commitment, your professionalism, and because of all these efforts, we managed really to have a very satisfying year 2020 and the first half of 2021. We were among the first in the UN system to resume in-person and hybrid meetings that allowed quite a number of very important UN structures to implement their program of work. So once again, thank you. I would like also to take this opportunity to congratulate Ms. Kira Kruglikova with her appointment. And I really think that's the recognition of the professionalism of your division, which really shows that one of you has become the director of the division. And I am looking forward to work with Kira and her team. I also would like to thank all officers in charge, head of the services, who during this very difficult year periodically led the department. And I think it was also a very good experience, which would allow all of us to work better as a team. Of course, there are quite a number of challenging issues in front of us. I just want to say that, of course, I am in permanent touch with the Staff Council. We had a meeting last week to discuss certain issues, but of course, there are certain issues which are specific to the division. I will just name two of them: the issue of increase of the workload for translators, and decided by the General Assembly, and the issue of hearing problems with interpreters. I would like to say that we take both issues very, very seriously. And in our discussion, we're always saying that we are not going to compromise the health and well-being of the staff. That's crucial for us. So, for example, when speaking about issues for interpreters, in all my meetings with the member states, I'm always raising the issue that they have to be prepared, technically prepared, organizationally prepared to participate in hybrid meetings, to provide conditions under which our interpreters, our staff can work. But I'm sure you are going to discuss these issues in depth. But I also would like to say that we are looking not only into these exact, very practical issues and challenges we are facing. All of us, of course, are thinking about future of Geneva, future of the world of multilateral conferencing. We understand that the member states, like all of us, are looking forward to resume in-person meetings, but at the same time we understand that the hybrid element is going there to stay, because it gives additional diversity, additional inclusion, and so we have to be prepared really to carry out, if the member states and their bodies decide so, to carry out this function. And I really think that with your professionalism, we can become one of the leaders in the UN system, providing this kind of a hybrid support if the member states decide so. Finally, I once again would like to tell all of you how seriously we are taking the health and sanitary issues with the move to the new building, H building, which concerns part of the staff. It's very, very important. Once again, I would like to thank you for all your dedication to the work you've been doing all these difficult months. And I would like to ask you to take care of yourself, to encourage all of you to take the vaccination, because we really think that later this summer and definitely in autumn, there will be a big renewal of in-person activities. And I really want all of us, all of you, to be prepared for this, to be healthy, to be in good form, and hopefully vaccinated. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Director General, for your words of support, for the confidence entrusted in me, and your ongoing support for the staff. We count on your continued engagement in the coming months to ensure that we can continue to fill our conferencing mandates. As noted by the Director General, we're facing a number of challenges because of the current public health situation due to COVID, but also the changing nature of our work environments. Member state expectations are very high, whether for the provision of virtual and hybrid conference services as a business continuity solution, or the adjusted workload standards mandate for translation. DCM colleagues have responded by adapting how they work and building new skills. I have been extremely impressed during my 2 stints when I was officer in charge at how many DCM staff across the division have embraced new technologies and really been at the forefront of finding solutions to continue to fulfill our mandate. People have really made a big effort, stepped up, and taken active leading roles in some of the global efforts to respond to that. So this is very impressive, especially at such a difficult time. Staff well-being is vitally important to our continued success, and I have been with the Director General in several of those discussions with the Staff Council, and it is very important to understand more fully some of the concerns that staff have, especially with the introduction of new technologies. We'll be going into these issues, in particular the interpretation health issue and the workload standard issue, in the service-specific meetings in the coming weeks, and I look forward to having a more in-depth discussion on those topics at that point. So before moving on to the next part of the agenda, I would just like to take the opportunity to thank you all for your hard work in the past year, your resilience, professionalism, your dedication, flexibility, and adaptability. And I recall when we left the Palais, it was I think March 16th last year, and everybody left and it wasn't clear. We were told, take your laptop, maybe you won't be coming back. But it was really amazing how quickly people were able to adapt to that shift and how quickly people were able to work and get what needed to be done. And within several months, UNOG was having conferences again. So really, thank you very much for that effort. So let's go ahead and start the PowerPoint. No town hall is possible without a PowerPoint. I'd like to just do a little introduction about me. So I am the director of the Division of Conference Management at this point. I'm following Corinne Momolvanyan. In my capacity, I am also fortunate to be the UNOG focal point for multilingualism, and I'm the UNOG focal point for the implementation of the UN Disability Inclusion Strategy. On a more personal note, I joined the UN in 2007 after a foreign service career. I worked as a diplomat with the United States. I served in 5 different countries and in capital in Washington, D.C. Before becoming a diplomat, I worked in manufacturing. I worked for a big pharma company, and there I worked in 6 different locations. So I've been very mobile in my prior career. I'm from California. I have a husband. I'm married. That all goes together. I have 2 kids, and I love to do salsa. That's my particular hobby. So if anybody's interested in Latin dance, feel free to give me a call. But that's enough about me. Let's go to the next slide, please. So some of these points we've already touched on. I think everyone is aware at this point that UNOG was the first UN duty station to resume official meetings. That was in June 2020. These were using the remote simultaneous interpretation platform. That was a huge effort, and it was a collaborative effort involving work with, of course, DCM, colleagues around the globe, and our colleagues in DOA, as well as in UNIS. The 46th session of the Human Rights Council, this was the first one that they had to hold in a hybrid format, and they did fully electronic voting. This was a huge shift for them. Again, a lot of effort on the part of the team, but that was very successful, and we've gotten very positive feedback from the president of the council. Last year, we only held 4,274 meetings. It sounds like a lot, but overall, that was a big reduction from our normal workload. Normally, it's about 39% of the meetings we normally hold for interpretation. Of the meetings with interpretation, 46 of them were virtual or hybrid format. And that reflects the fact that the first quarter of the year, we were still doing in-person meetings. Second quarter of the year, there weren't meetings. And then it was really quarter 3 and quarter 4 that we started getting moving. We're still on a good pace with that. We did in the first quarter of the year, we did 407 meetings. Particularly impressive was that in 2020, the translation team and those who work with them produced over 90% of the documentation workload compared to the 2019 volume of translation. So this was an amazing accomplishment, and we all remember that March of last year, the schools were closed as well. It wasn't just that we all went home and worked with our laptops. So again, thank you everyone for your work on that. Next slide, please. So here's the divisional priorities that we set for 2021. We set these collectively, the 4D1s. When we were officer in charge, we discussed together what we felt the priorities should be for the division. The first one, ensuring funding sufficiency. That's a very fancy way to saying make sure that we have enough money to continue our operations, to pay salaries and meet our mandates. Promoting staff well-being and development, I think that's pretty clear. Again, this is a high priority for us. Focusing on client needs, this includes making sure that we communicate with the clients regularly and really understand what they need. We can't make assumptions, we think they need this, and everything's been topsy-turvy since the hybrid situation. And I think we've really strengthened the bonds with the clients who have been quite vocal about what they've needed, and together we've been able to make a lot of progress. Drawing benefits from innovation, technology, data, and partnerships. We've had to do a lot of close partnership work, DOA, other colleagues at other duty stations to navigate the hybrid situation. Innovation is about doing our work better. Technology, we need to be abreast of new tools, and data helps us make decisions better. But one thing I'd like to underscore, this is really all about helping us to hit our mandate, to do what we need to do. It's not just change for change's sake, because of course that's quite frustrating. We all have enough to do. Mainstreaming multilingualism. This is a core value of the UN and a core value of our work. the division is all about multilingualism with the 6 different languages we work in. And then promoting inclusion and accessibility. So inclusion, this is issues about, this can tie into gender, this can tie into diversity, this can tie into disability. But this is a key priority for the Secretary General, and this is something that we in the division want to continue to support. Next slide, please. Now, I love this slide. I know it's really intimidating when you first look at it. There's 4 different lines here, and each of them represent a valid point, a valuable point. The blue line at the top, what this shows is how over time, since 2010 through the end of last year, the division has made incredible progress on issuing documents on time. So back at the beginning, 2010, about half of documents were issued on time. By 2018, 100% of documents were issued on time. And this is in a time when the budget was going down. So this is an incredible achievement and very much a testament to our colleagues in translation and documents planning. Then we see the green line. The green line is the number of meetings. And this, you can see, as things were moving along, the number of meetings were increasing. Some of this is a testament to the incredible work that we do here, because people want to come to Geneva to sort out their problems. You know, whether it was the Geneva International discussions that came in 2008, recent discussions with Cyprus peace talks, Afghanistan, Syria, this is a testament to the quality of the services that we provide. Now, of course, the number went down in 2020 because of COVID, and we had to shut the Palais for 3 months, and then it took quite a while to get back up to speed. The next 2 lines, you have the documentation line, which is the dark blue line, which you can see was actually slightly decreasing over this 10-year period. So whereas meetings were going up, documentation was slightly going down, and the budget level that we had was basically tracking the documentation level. So there's been some things, the big changes, I would say, increase in meetings and increase in documentation issuance compliance, small decrease in budget. Next slide, please. So for 2021, this is our situation here. In terms of our overall budget, we have a $126 million appropriation. I love numbers, so I think it's important to help get a sense of where we are. The planned expenditure, this is tied up with the ongoing liquidity crisis, which is less pressing than it was last year, but is still existent. So we have basically $114 million. We've received 50% of the approved non-post resources. We're expecting to get more. The first point there, I think, is really important to realize 89.2% of our budget goes to posts. That's your salary, that's my salary. And it is top priority that everybody gets paid every month. What that means, though, is that is not a particularly flexible part of our budget. Then we have 7.4% that we can use for temporary assistant for meetings. And then the 3.4% is the tiny slice that we use to actually purchase supplies, do contractual translation. So I don't know, I like to see, I think it's important to get a sense of the flexibility that we have in our financial situation. Another big outcome this year was that the Division of Administration got funding to cover their costs for hybrid meetings. So that's covering the platform and covering some of the staff who provide that support. That took a lot of pressure off us in general. So we're working now with DOA. Now we're back to an infrastructure situation where, as they install hybrid technology in additional conference rooms, we want to be able to use those for hybrid meetings. And then the other aspect that came about in the budget resolution was the increased workload standard for translation services, and that was adopted in the budget resolution. Next slide, please. So I think it's good to see the staffing table. There's 577 positions in the division. We're 41% GS staff, 59% D&P staff. Back when I was in the executive office, at one point we had all gotten all the way up to 625 posts. So you can see that there has been a reduction, and to an extent, and we think back to the graph, that's tied up with that decrease in the budget. For people to know, the 2020 budget proposal is out, or it's very close to being published. What was put forward in that for the division was a reduction of 3 vacant GSOL posts. So I can tell you that as far as we know, there are certainly no plans to cut any posts with people on them, and we can expect that in the 2022 budget proposal that everybody who is sitting here on a funded post will continue to have a funded post through the end of 2022. Next slide. One of the things you may hear sometimes in the context of recruitment is geographic posts. This is a member state mandate that posts be distributed across the geographic regions. Now, because of the specificity of language posts for translators and for interpreters, editors are not subject to these geographic restrictions. And I think you can see that basically 10% of our posts that the P or the D level, GS posts are not included in this, are subject to geographic restrictions. What this means is that we have limited opportunity to shift where we recruit from, what the geographic distribution is. Another thing that's become important recently is to have equal representation, or at least broad representation from the different regions. We've included here all the staff on board, the 512 staff, and you can see the distribution that we have. The majority is Western European, Eastern European, and then the smallest group is from Latin America and Caribbean group. Next slide, please. So another hot topic, of course, is gender distribution. The division actually has a majority of women. It's 55%, and the men are at 45%. And then the chart with the yellow and the blue, the yellow is women and the blue is men. So you can get a sense of where, at which post level, where are we evenly. So for instance, at P2s right now, we're even 50-50, P3 is very close, P4 also very even. P5 is slightly more women. And then when you get up into D1s and D2s, you're not looking at statistically significant samples because they're very small numbers. But I think this is important to realize that the division is doing quite well on gender balance. And I just want to underscore that of course is balance. So it is important that we have not a preponderance of women or a preponderance of men, but really we try to keep a balance. Next slide. So what might be interesting, you may recall that last year as part of the liquidity crisis, we had a hiring freeze. So that hiring freeze has been relaxed. I wanted to call it a hiring thaw, but the hiring freeze has been relaxed to the point of maintaining the budgeted vacancy rate. And this is sort of a technical term, but what it means is that when the budget envelope is set, the member states assume this percentage. In our case, they assume 9.1, well, in all cases, they assume 9.1% of P-level posts will be vacant, and then they provide money to support that. So you can see the BVR, 7.4% for GS staff, 9.1% for PS, P and D staff. Our current vacancy rates are above this, which gives us the opportunity then to open up some additional recruitment. So when it was announced that the hiring freeze was being lifted, all the recruitments that had started when the freeze was implemented, those are now already finished or being completed. There was also a first round of job openings that was published, and some of those selections have already been finalized, and congratulations if you're among the people who were selected. We'll be publishing a second round in Inspira shortly on that. But again, we can't advertise every vacant post because we are required to maintain the budgeted vacancy rate. So we're consulting collectively to see what are the posts that should be advertised. And then we need to work with colleagues in New York who, because DGACM New York controls the budget and the policy, we will make sure that they're informed as to what's being done in terms of recruitment. Next slide, please. So here's some of the challenges and opportunities that we see, and these are not going to be surprising. We've been able to maintain some level of business continuity during this COVID period. This has been complicated somewhat really by the beginnings of SHP to ramp up. This is happening faster and faster. Some of our colleagues in the executive office and the office of director have to move because they're in the S building, which is being closed in mid-June. SHP is also closing a number of conference rooms, and this is going to put a lot more pressure on our colleagues in meetings management to find space to accommodate our clients. I've had a meeting with the executive secretary of ECE and with ODA, and their one main push is we need more meetings. We'll be planning how to return to work, how to restart in-person meetings, as the Director General mentioned. We will be figuring out how best to support staff during the evolution of our work as we're meeting our mandates. I think you're aware at this point of the new performance management system. If you have any questions, please ask your manager. We have been reminded that the deadline for completing the existing, the cycle that's over, and implementing your new work plans is the end of May. So time is tight. If you have already, thank you very much. If you haven't, please make an effort to complete that. We need to make sure we communicate thoroughly and effectively with clients and member states, technology I've spoken on. And then one of the things that's really important is strengthening our ties with DGACM colleagues across duty stations and then across international Geneva with our host country. Next slide, please. So our big goals for this year, we need to be holding more meetings than we did in 2020, and we're on track, but it's moving slowly, but we're on track with that with the support of DOA. We need to make sure that hybrid conferencing is sustainable, and this comes back to the point about interpreter health. We'll be taking the lead on putting together an education campaign for remote participants to get them to use the right equipment, be in the right setting, have the right connections. And we'll also manage expectations that if they cannot do that, it's possible the meeting will be interrupted and interpretation will be discontinued. I also wish to build on the excellent work that Corinne and the team who worked on this project did with conferencing today and tomorrow. This would be to work on with our clients, delegations, and of course, talk to colleagues here. What is good from COVID, the hybrid meetings? What should we keep? What needs to go? For some, this is really a great opportunity. People who have disabilities and can't leave the house can suddenly participate in meetings everywhere. People who have to come from little island states that would have to fly for 3 days to participate in a meeting, they can suddenly participate in a meeting. This is all great. Downside, we don't have the side discussions, we don't have the same in-person interaction. All this will be looked at, and we'll be working with people, possibly asking for volunteers to participate to help run this study. We'll be setting up a multilingualism action team. This builds on the great work that was done with the Disability Inclusion Action Team. We'll be focusing on meeting our mandates within our resource constraints and enhancing partnerships. I know I've gone on a little long, so let me finish and see if we can take a few questions. If need be, perhaps we can go over a little bit. So thank you. Okay, so I see a question here. What has the impact of the shift to hybrid meetings been in terms of DCM work? Well, this is an excellent question. This is in fact the question for the coming months. So the shift to hybrid meetings, and as really it's impacted interpreters because of the cognitive load of working on hybrid meetings. And if you spend your whole day in front of screens doing hybrid meetings, you know it's really tiring. Plus the difficulty with the poor sound. This has really been challenging for our interpreters. The way we handle this, if there's more than 30 minutes of remote participation, then the meeting is limited to 2 hours. This has an impact on our clients, whereas before they had 3-hour meetings, now they have a much reduced time, so it's difficult for our clients to get their mandates done. This may or may not have an implication downstream on documentation, because if meetings aren't going on as long, will there be as many documents to prepare, documents to complete? So we have to see how that evolves. I've been really impressed with our colleagues who have volunteered to be technical moderators, because there's a lot of backstage work with these on-screen meetings. It looks very simple. There's a person who's sitting there going dot, 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 talking. But we have a whole team of people working on the back, opening mics, closing mics, managing connection issues. So thank you to everyone who's done that training and who continues to support hybrid meetings. What difference will this make to operations in the future? This is going to come down to what the member states want. Right now, there is not a clear consensus from the member states as to whether or not hybrid meetings should continue in the post-COVID situation. The justification for hybrid meetings was the context of business continuity, so that we needed to keep multilingual, multilateral meetings going. Super important. This has been done and our clients are grateful, but what a lot of people are asking for is we need in-person meetings, and there's intense discussions right now in New York as to whether or not the GA in New York, how will that be held? Will it be hybrid? Will it be virtual? Will it in fact be in person? I think these sorts of discussions will be coming here in the coming months. This is outside our control. It's really a function of what the Swiss do in the context of public health measures. So we will see, but again, we're going to do a study on that. Also for reference, OIOS is including it in its work plan, the impact of COVID. JIU has been doing a study on business continuity and included aspects in that. Colleagues in ECE are interested in discussing future of conferencing, and I've been involved in some meetings with the Swiss mission on exactly the same thing. So it is the question of the hour, and ideas and input, of course, are welcome. There's another question, 2 questions on the work plan. Let me see, let me scroll down, sorry for that. This, I don't know, we'll have to see. I think this is something we will check with Human Resources. So can staff members currently on maternity leave submit their work plans upon their return? So this we'll check with Human Resources and let you know. And then when will the software bugs be fixed so that managers can see their staff members' uploaded work plans? I know there's a lot of frustration around the new performance management system. My understanding is there's going to be a new update to Inspira, I think at the end of May. And it's hoped that a lot of these will be sorted out, but we will ask Human Resources for the latest update and provide that. So I don't see any other questions. Is there anything else? So this is your or of course, we'll be looking forward to seeing everybody at the service level meetings. Let me see, let me just go back and check. Nope. All right, well, we've hit 3 o'clock. Thank you all very much for your attention.
Oh, wait, Kira, we just received one more. If you have
excellent.
a few minutes.
Sure, of course. I don't see it yet, though. Oh, there it is. Good question. What, if anything, can you tell us about agile contracts, what they might look like, and when they might come into effect? That is an excellent question. I, at this point, have seen nothing on that, so we will ask Human Resources if they've seen any input and if they can find that. I know that it's a matter of intense discussion with the Staff Council, but of course I can't speak for them on that. So we will ask and see if we can get an answer on that, and we will share that with everybody. So excellent question, but at this point I'm not sure. One thing that if people may be interested in, there is going to be a global language roster. This is a new initiative, and the idea with this is that there will be global freelance tests, global tests for short-term staff, and they will be recruited through this global roster. I don't think that's going to have anything to do with the agile contracts, but it's an interesting change. And one of the things that I really welcome with this is that this will be a way to invite more people to participate in these tests and see whether or not we can actually expand the diversity of our temporary staff base. Okay. Well, I think that's it. So again, if you have any other questions that you didn't have a chance to submit here, or if you would like to know more about anything in particular, please feel free to email Muge. She's organizing all these town halls and does an amazing job. Thank you very much, Muge, Antigone, Olga, Ben, for your work on setting this up. Thanks also to ICTS, Munir and Leonardo for doing the getting everything set up with the Teams live function. But if you have questions, you can always send me an email or prepare questions if you want for the service-specific meetings. You can send them to Muge in advance or actually ask them at the event itself. So thank you all very much for your work, and thank you for the so many kind words I've received. I'm very grateful. But I will be seeing you soon.